Salam sejahtera and a very good day to everyone. Today we have a topic to discuss that may challenge different perspectives and viewpoints. But keep in mind, this is just a simple forum where we keep things professional regardless. The topic on hand today is, should underage marriage be stopped? With me, Chok Min Qi, as your moderator for today, and how can we have a forum without our lovely panelists? First and foremost, we welcome Alea, Arissa, Binti, Azizul, Azly, a renowned pediatrician in Malaysia.
Hello, it is nice to be here.
Next, we have Mrs. Zi Enn, a young bride.
It's my pleasure to be invited here.
Lastly, we have the founder of the renowned NGO Girls Not Brides, Syifa, Izzati, Binti, Muhamad, Zuki.
Thank you for inviting me for today's forum.
Alright, so before we get into the topic, let's understand what is underage marriage. It is different than a consenting marriage that we normally attend since, in a marriage, both parties must agree to the marriage with no mistake and no force must be used towards either of the party into the consent. Marriage is considered to be a happy moment and a joyous celebration. But what about underage marriage? Underage marriage is where minors or children below the legal age of 18 are getting married, and statistics shows that girls are more often to be married off than boys. Some may be married with their own will, while some may not. So that is why today we will be discussing the topic on hand. Should underage marriage be stopped? So what do you think about this topic, Miss Alea Arissa?
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my opinions about these issues. Girls all around the world deserve to have entire childhood, to go to school, to be free of violence, several health effects of child marriage, and be able to choose who and when they are going to marry for themselves without violence or feel pressure. Somehow, after marrying, the girl child will put under pressure by her new family to do things she does not even wish to do. Her husband will eventually force her to engage with sexual and to have children afterwards. Because she is not mentally or physically matured, she will confront several difficulties and health concerns in the future which may result in death. The connection between the maternal death and the age of the mother is quite strong, since the child bride is likely to become pregnant soon after her marriage, leading their pregnancy to become early. Young mothers are at significant risk for having difficulties such as severe bleeding, numerous infections, or maybe disorders such as anemia, which can also easily lead to death.
I see. Alright, Miss Alea Arissa, as a professional pediatrician, do you mind sharing your experience on how do you handle cases where there are minors who are married?
There is also a myth saying that by marrying their child early, they can reduce the chances of their kids getting HIV/AIDS. However, the opposite is the truth. In addition, married girls are most likely to get HIV and other sexually transmitted disease compared to those who are married. This is mostly due to the lack of education on the effects and usage of prevention, and even if they are aware about this, they are unable to access the same due to the limited autonomy and freedom of movement. They are also mistreated by their family, which is a form of domestic violence, and this will cause them to become mentally unwell, which can also lead to depression. Underage marriage robs a girl of the education and more, replacing lessons learned in the classroom with adult responsibility, including forced pregnancy, well before she was even ready. This is not only violates her rights but also risks her life, the lives of her children, and the future of the community itself. Many children suffer from mental and physical abuse that is detrimental to their health. Many has causes long-term of effects and trauma, which unfortunately are not given the necessary care. This has caused many families to break apart.
Oh, I see. Thank you for sharing. As we can see, underage marriage oftentimes have heavy consequences for those who aren't matured mentally and physically, and as the name suggests, underage marriage. The term underage, where most probably the minor is not matured in either mental or physical aspect yet. Now let's listen from our second panelist, Mrs. Zi Enn. So, what do you think about underage marriage?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on the underage marriage. So, in my opinion, I do not think that underage marriage should be stopped. Let us think about what is the reason that causes underage marriage. The most significant reason goes to poverty. For example, South Asia has the highest rates of child marriage in the world. 45% of women are being married before the age of 18 and 17% married before the age of 15. Niger, as one of the poorest countries in the world, has the highest overall prevalence of child marriage in the world, and India alone accounts for 1/3 of the global total, as it has the largest number of brides in the world. So what I would like to say from the data I mentioned just now is that for the society who live in poverty, the most efficient ways to overcome the problem of poverty is marrying off their daughters, as girls are always deemed as the burden in the family. This is because fewer children at home means fewer to feed and clothe, as this demands lesser money for their daily needs. For example, in India, the younger they marry off their daughters, the lesser the dowry they are required to pay a groom. However, some of their families do not think of them as a burden, but they want them to live better, so that is why they want to marry off their daughter to someone who are affordable to raise them up. Although there were lots of effort made by all the organizations to fight against poverty to achieve no poverty, however, we all know that they have much further to go in the fight against extreme poverty and toward better opportunity for the poorest everywhere in the world. The inequality is a persistent roadblock to this progress. The inequality, which is the gap between the rich and the poor, is still far too high across the world, and main concerns remain around the concentration of wealth among those at the top of income distribution. If this situation is still happening, the poor and uneducated people have no choice and need to overcome their poverty by a quite effective alternative, which is underage marriage. Thus, I would like to say that underage marriage should not be stopped if there are still poverty issues happening around the world. Let us think of it in a positive way. For them, perhaps child marriage is a way to provide better future for their daughters, as well to overcome poverty at the same time.
Right, thank you, Mrs. Zi Enn, for your insights. We can see the reason to why underage marriage happens, as there are reasons such as financial burdens. And it is undeniable that poverty causes many of the financial issues that more than half of the world population are currently facing, especially those in third world countries. And we can see how some of them are trying to overcome it, resulting to underage marriage. Do you have anything else to add on regarding this issue, Mrs. Ang?
Yes. If we think in other way, I think that there are few benefits that we can gain from an underage marriage. First is providing a better life and future for their daughters so that they can live their life happily away from poverty and poorness. The family will have lesser financial burden, as most of the poor in a country like Niger, they actually suffer a lot from multiple droughts and few arable areas that makes them poor. Second, since you all mentioned just now, underage marriage is a marriage under 18 years old, so from here, we can see that an underage marriage can lessen the cases like the mothers having advanced maternal age pregnancy, which is associated with several adverse pregnancy outcomes. It is considered as high-risk pregnancy because the outcomes include preterm birth, low birth weight, stillbirth, chromosomal defects, labor complications, and others. Next, with underage marriage and earlier pregnancy, it can shorten the age gap between the child and the mother. With a small age difference between them, they are more likely to communicate well between each other, as the mother can be their close friends rather than just being their mother. And the mother may also have more understanding of their child at the teenage years. Last from me, I would like to say that an underage married girl is able to take care of their children well too, with the guide of the elderly. I have seen cases in social media like underage mother successfully having their child and able to take care of them well. It is just the same as the new birth mother of the age of 20. They do need the guide of the elderly to take care of their children too. Thus, from here, I think the only difference is that the underage mother will be more mature than the others, since they must face all this at their teen or even earlier. So I do not think that being mature is a bad thing. So that's all from my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. From what we can understand, underage marriage happens due to poverty and the lack of education opportunities for girls, as there are countries that still bear the stigma where girls are deemed as inferior compared to the boys. Hence, the number of girls getting married off is statistically higher than boys. Alright, let's keep the ball moving. Miss Syifa, can you tell us more about your NGO, Girls Not Brides? And do you think that underage marriage should be stopped or not? So, what is your thoughts about this topic?
I totally agree that child marriage should be stopped along with our Girls Not Bride organization mission, which is to prevent child marriage and support girls who are or have ever been married. Child marriage should be banned because it smells violence and the exploitation of the child. Even though that the child marriage is usually portrayed by a community as a way to protect girls from hardship of life and shame of having premarital sex, however, this action is merely an escape plan for the criminal from facing the real-life judgment when busted. It is because, according to the article published by Thomson Reuters Foundations on 6 March 2017, said that according to their survey, they find out that the rapists in the world such as Iraq, Philippines, and Tunisia could avoid punishment by law if they married to their victim. However, the marital rape is another problem in child marriage, since this action is legal in at least 10 countries in the world, and out of the 10 countries that legalize this action, 4 of them allow even when the wife is a child. But rape is always a rape, even when the couple is legally married to each other, because this is a form of sexual assault if the action is carried out without both parties' consent. For instance, if the victim being a grown-up woman, they know how to seek help since they are clear on what is right and what is wrong. But how can a child distinguish this action? When they usually take everything that an adult said as a right thing, besides, even if they know that their right is being violated, as a child, they can do nothing since they are too scared to utter a word to defend themselves, and they do not know a right authority to report these actions. In many cases, parents feel it is their daughter's best interest to marry at young age. They believe marriage will protect her against physical and sexual assault. Yet, this belief is often mistaken. Child marriage puts women and girls at particular risk of sexual, physical, and psychological violence throughout their life.
I see. The NGO is extremely interesting, and thank you for your contributions. I am sure that there are many out there who has the same view with you, and they might be interested to be part of your NGO as well. Anyway, do you feel that underage marriage is a form of violation towards girls, as study shows more girls are getting married off compared to boys? And do you think any action should be taken to put a stop to this?
Yes, I do feel that it is a form of violation, and these are a few reasons why these violations of girls' most basic rights should prompt actions. The first reason is we will not end violence against women and girls as long as they are married as a child. Because there is a growing and vocal movement of people around the world determined to put a stop to violence against women and girls. The scale of child marriage means that we cannot hope to achieve this without addressing a practice that leaves girls vulnerable to many different forms of violence. For your information, globally, more than 700 million women alive today were married before their 18th birthday. Without concerted actions, this number could grow to over 1.2 billion by 2015. And the second reason is because child brides are more vulnerable to physical violence. Girls who marry as children are particularly at risk of violence from their partners or their partner's family. They are more likely to be beaten or threatened by their husband than girls who marry later. The greater the age difference between girl and their husband, the more likely they are to experience intimate partner's violence. Often married to much older men, child brides are more likely to believe that a man is sometimes justified in beating his wife than women who marry later. Because globally, 44% of girls aged 15 to 19 think a husband or a partner is justified in hitting or beating his wife or partner in certain circumstances. And the last reason is because marrying young subjects girls to insidious forms of violence, emotional and psychological. Child brides often suffer emotional pressure from their family and husband. They even suffer from their in-laws, and this can limit their ability to make decisions about their own life and bodies. Forced sexual initiations and early pregnancy often have lasting effect on girls' mental health. Okay, let me take Evelyn's story as an example. She's a former child bride and she became a community activist for women's rights. Evelyn is from Liberia and was just 15 when she was forced to marry. Early on, she found it difficult to assert her wishes about whether or when to have a baby, and she soon realized that were she to use some form of contraceptions, her husband would leave her, and she lived her life in fear that he would find out. Thus, I would say that a child marriage is indeed a violation of child protections and human rights. Therefore, all countries around the world should put a stop to the underage marriage because it is clearly could compromise a bright future of a child and severely limit their opportunities in life. Violence against women and girls is a global problem that affects millions of women and girls every year. In fact, it is estimated that 1 in 3 women and girls experience violence in their lifetime. And for your information, child marriage is a manifestation of that violence. So to conclude, we should stop child marriage in order to stop violence and exploitations against children and protect their rights.
So, the amount of girls becoming a bride in a young age is surprisingly high. Hence, their future are sealed once they are married. This is really disheartening to hear. Thank you, Ms. Syifa, for sharing this information with us. Alright, before we end this, I will conclude today's forum. We hear the different sides and opinions towards underage marriage. On one hand, we see those who agree that we should stop underage marriage as it causes many complications such as unfortunate diseases, deteriorating mental health, and abuse towards minors. As a minor is still considered a child, their mental capacity and physical body isn't fully developed to bear such heavy responsibilities such as dealing with their partner's emotion and theirs as well, and bearing a child and having to shoulder the responsibility as a parent or partner when they themselves are still considered as children is not a task even adults could manage. While on the other hand, we can see why underage marriage is still currently happening. Poverty, financial burden, an extra mouth to feed, and the lack of education. The idea of marrying off their children could help them financially as it will ease the parents' burden, and this caused many to do it even if they disagree with it morally as they couldn't see another way out. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, we have reached to the end of our forum. I would like to thank all of the panelists for their time and thoughts regarding this issue. It was delightful as we gained new perspective and learned something new. Thank you for joining in with us today. Goodbye and stay safe, everybody.